is a very strong figure. We have Jesus, a very strong figure, of course, for his own reasons. But now we have no figure at all. Because it's the spirits, it's the wind that we talked about, right? It's for us to learn how to make sense of the ideas for the idea's sake, not from where they come. It's not because somebody told you that the idea is good that you're going to believe it. Of course, it's a good part of it, but it's the idea for the idea's sake. So we had Moses who told us not to do things, and Christ told us to do things and told us, hey, I'm going to send you a comforter that will come again. We see that in John, right? And will make things better. And he will speak not of himself. The spirits are speaking to us, and not through themselves. Often through the other people, and we can't see them. And we struggle with this message that is faceless, that we can't quantify or grab, or we don't know who is from. Sometimes we have a spirit communication, like, oh, who is he from? Who is he from? Right? Because it's still in our nature to kind of do that kind of stuff. But what really matters is the message in itself. Does it matter if it was really Mark, Matthew, Luke, or John that wrote those Gospels? Not so much. What matters is the message. So what is up to us now, and is the most difficult job we will have in our spiritual evolution, is to put the effort into analyzing things and looking at the merit of things and see if they connect with our inner compass. Do they make sense? Will they make my life better? We have to learn to make these decisions and challenge our assumptions to see whether it really holds water. Right? And that's a fantastic piece to it. So I babble again, I'll stop. But the idea here being is, this is a great opportunity for us to reevaluate everything that we've been exposed to, everything that's around us, but not because we think we can affect the behavior of others, but because we can make our lives better. Let's work on what we can do. That's the only thing that we can have a return on. Right?
We have time for one more question. Anybody else? I know they're going to get to that and ask a couple more questions.
Do them now, because outside they're $5 a question.
When you were talking about Nicodemus talking to Jesus, that was beautiful, the explanation that Jesus concentrated on what he thought people could understand, which is how to live on the earth. But he did not go into spiritual too much because it would have been too complicated or dense. I then thought about reading the book No Solar, because now that filled in where my Catholic teaching left off. So now I have like a continuation of my concept of reincarnation. Just because I'm dead, it doesn't mean I'm smart. So now I move on to No Solar, and I've got a model. Is there anything in what I'm saying that relates back to where I started, that Jesus couldn't talk about that because nobody can understand?
No, it's a great comment that you actually make. I do think that he indeed did talk about those complicated things with folks, probably in his inner circle. Probably for folks who could comprehend that, because there's no point in talking about complicated things to people that don't get the basics. So he did, in fact, with his disciples, talk about all these things, and they were very aware of that. We even seen the Acts of the Apostles, which is that little story after Jesus passing. There's one book in the New Testament where there's the tongues of fire and prophesying, and they go into the world. So there's mediumship there. There's all kinds of different things. So they had great knowledge about great many things that we ourselves don't understand yet. However, for the bigger masses, what really needed to be said, and still for us today, what needs to be said is the basics, which is the understanding of compassion, love, treating each other fairly. These are the most important things, and they should take precedence over the more complicated things. You cannot do the more complicated things without the simpler things. He did talk about them, but in the process of speaking to the greatest number of people, as he was his job to do, and making sure that his message was effective, and all the transcription of the message and things later, what really stuck with us was the stories. And he knew that was indeed the fact. Such a psychologist he was, understanding the psychology of people, that knowing that he can talk about very abstract things, and sometimes our mind struggles to hold it because we're not quite there yet. But if he tells us a story, we can relate, because we all know people, we all relate to people. So he left us with beautiful parables, which are kind of like onions, right? Which you peel away, you read one thing, and whoa, that makes sense, this is interesting, or not so much. And then you learn something else, you look at it again, and I look at this parable a little bit different. And you kind of, when your knowledge changes, the parable changes with it, which is really a difficult thing to do, to give you a story that kind of keeps on giving. So to kind of make a long story short, I think he did speak of the more complicated things. It's just that folks don't remember because we can barely grab the basics. And that's what I think is great about Spiritism, which is kind of the continuation, is reminding us to go back to the basics, but also giving us a little bit of more of the rational piece so that we can force ourselves to take the next step to understanding the more complicated things such as reincarnation and mediumship and how does it work. Some of us need that explanation, right? Some of us need an explanation because we might refuse to otherwise accept things. So it's great for us today. So does it make sense? I think it's a natural progression piece, but I think he was speaking about those things today. Sometimes you look back at what he said, you're like, whoa. You know, after reading a couple of things, like, wow, that's really smart.
I guess my last thought on this is that if indeed I would have had a teaching, such as a no hierarchy, that you keep on growing and progressing, whether you come back here or you go to another planet in your next incarnation, it's irrelevant because your soul's going to keep on growing. That would have been more fruitful for me even as a teenager than I was going to blow a trumpet.
Yes, true, but look at the other way around, right? You could have had that as a teenager, maybe you would not have paid attention to it. Because maybe you'll be interested in blowing a trumpet, right? And much the same way, maybe we did get this message back in the day, right? Back in the day as in thousands of years ago, but it didn't resonate with us because our interest was not there. Interest takes over time, and hopefully by doing what we're doing here today, which is spending, a day out of our weeks, our months to kind of just entertain these ideas, even if we don't accept them, we don't have to, but start thinking about it. It makes them makes us more susceptible to reflection of ourselves, and then eventually that will lead to tolerance and change and so forth. So sometimes it takes time, but hindsight's 20/20, right? We look back and we're like, I should have done that, but we didn't. So let's move forward. Yeah? Thank you.